Hello, and welcome back to the last of this three-part series about how to write an academic paper and how to work that outline of yours so that your academic paper is almost complete by the time you are done with the outline. Now, we've gone over our introduction in part 1, and in part 2 I kind of walked you through how you should divide up the body of your paper, and in part 3 I want to talk about the conclusion. People often find conclusions hard to write because they don't know what really to include. I have 4 main elements that I think can be very helpful within a conclusion. And although the examples I have here for our world hungry thesis are short and sweet and to the point, they could all be elaborated on a good deal in the conclusion paragraph or 2 paragraphs, depending upon how large, how long your paper is, and how much of a huge topic you are talking about. Ideally, your conclusion should include the following elements. First, restate your thesis in a new and creative way. Second, you want to review the main points in your paper, the main arguments, and discuss how they read back to your thesis statement. You want to discuss all the major potential counter arguments that you had to deal with in your paper and why they are not important and why your theory works better. And then you want to give some suggestions for new research. The one thing you do not want to add, and I'll put this up here, don't add any new information except for new places to research. You don't want to add anything that proves your thesis statement in your conclusion. Ultimately, the conclusion is a good summary for your reader. Your reader has just spent some time reading a long paper that you have written, and you are taking the time that is needed to recap for your reader. Adding new information just kind of clouds the whole idea that this is a recap. So keep new information for your body paragraphs and keep a summary for your conclusion. Now, we decided that we were doing world hunger, right? And if I bring up my world hunger paper, our thesis statement was we can solve world hunger by combining the ideas of socialism and democracy and promoting a community sensibility that cares for the many rather than the few. When we dissected this thesis statement, we found that we had 5 major topics that we had to cover in the body of our paper in order to prove our thesis. We had to discuss world hunger, we had to discuss socialism, we had to discuss democracy, we had to discuss how we can combine socialism with democracy, and we had to discuss the idea of a community versus the interests of the individual. So those were the main points we went through our paper, and if we laid out our argument well, we probably stuck with those same points. We might have some different ones, and if so, we would revise what our points are. So first, we would start by restating our thesis statement in a new and a creative way. People do not have to go hungry. I have demonstrated that there is more than enough food to feed everyone on the planet. And then I'd probably elaborate on this a little bit. As Smith said, and again, if I bring somebody up, I do the citation immediately. I don't forget the page number, if it's a book, if it's a periodical, last name, if it is an article from the internet. All right, so I have demonstrated that there is more than enough food to feed everyone on the planet. As Smith stated, food is not at issue. Our want to feed others is at issue, and then I put that down. So what I basically did is I made a claim and I supported my claim by using another expert, and then I can go on to explain it. Next element I'd want my conclusion is to review all my main points and how those points applied back to my thesis statement. So I'll say something to the effect of, if we shift our ideas from promoting the few or promoting the interest of the few to helping the masses, we can feed the world. Although socialism has its drawbacks, if we temper socialism with democracy, we can counter those drawbacks by ... So here is where you are kind of reviewing your main points and you're re-summarizing it for your reader. And then you want to remind your reader that there was some counter arguments, but we don't have to worry about that. And that's the next element in your conclusion. So for our world hunger example, I might have written, although some people argue that hunger cannot be solved and only those who are the fittest should survive, I argue that this is a choice, not a fact. We choose to let people die. It does not need to happen. And then I could go on and deal with if there was another counter argument. I could put it here and so on and so forth, okay? And then I suggest that we always offer areas of new research or inquiry. Now, this is something that is often done in graduate papers, but I suggest starting to do this on the undergraduate level as well, because it really gets you thinking about where's the next step. I mean, if your paper is really relevant, then this shouldn't be the end of its journey. Somebody else might pick up your ideas and elaborate on them. So one of the ways to do suggestions of new research for our world hunger, I might write, what I propose here is not complete, but a first step toward change. It would be important to work out specifics on how, for example, to best change the philosophical outlook of the masses. How can we change a me group of individuals into a we group of pragmatists? Further areas of research might also include ... So there may be different areas in which somebody can build upon your research in order to help make your vision happen. What are those areas? And direct those potential audiences to think about these topics themselves. And finally, I like to suggest to people to end your paper on the hook. So your hook was one of the very first things you wrote in your introduction. It captivated your reader's attention, or you hope it did, so that your reader would want to read your paper and be engaged in your topic and your argument. Bring your reader back to that moment in time in your conclusion. This is like a suggestion here for our world hunger. As I mentioned in my introduction, it is time to turn toward suffering rather than away from it. Look hunger in the face and come to terms that you may be hungry someday. Let that reality lead your efforts from today to tomorrow. By leading your reader with mention back to your original hook of your paper that you found in the introduction, you are able to remind your reader of their full journey with you from the very beginning of your paper to the very end of your paper, and you allow them to see how that hook is actually relevant to him or her as your reader. And those are the elements for a good conclusion. Of course, you'd also then have a different paper, a different page, insert page break, with your works cited and your bibliography. And then you would list all the people that you had included and quoted or took from or researched from in this particular last page. And that is how you basically write an academic paper. If you go through your outline very specifically and you really fill it in very well, like I show you how to do here, and remember to cite everybody you're using, remember to cite all your quotes, have your quotes well done, then by the time you sit down and write your paper, you have basically already written it. Your outline has written the paper for you. And that is one of the most ideal situations, because then all you have to do is spend a good amount of time checking for writing errors or logical errors, or making sure that there are transition sentences and so on and so forth. You'll have more time generally to edit your paper. And as we all know, writing is rewriting. So the more time you have to rewrite your paper, the better your paper will be. Thank you very much for staying tuned for these 3 parts. I hope that this tutorial has helped you. On YouTube, I'll make sure to put in links to this academic paper outline so that you will be able to download a copy of it of yourself and use it as a template to fill it in. Mahalo for your time and have a great day. Goodbye.